Hi, listeners. Thanks for joining in. Welcome to another HRO Today educational podcast. In this series, we aim to provide you the latest workforce management approaches and best practices in HR. I'm Debbie Bola, Vice President and Editorial Director of HRO Today magazine. In the current tight talent market, organizations need to leverage every tool in their arsenal in order to get ahead. Today's candidates are in the driver's seat and often have multiple opportunities to choose from. So how can organizations show they are employers of choice and attract and retain the talent they need to hit business goals? Today, I have an expert here with me who can share exactly what HR needs to know, 7 key factors that candidates seek when looking for new roles. Chris Beckage is Vice President of Business Development for Procom, a leading staffing and contract work services provider. Chris has more than 25 years of experience providing talent acquisition services to companies in North America. Thanks, Chris, for joining me today. How can organizations position themselves as employers of choice during the current candidate market?
The first thing they need to do is to understand who their ideal employee is. What I suggest to companies is build a profile of the ideal employee from the motivators for the reason to work, their educational background, companies that you've hired from in the past that have worked out well, and then also look at transferable skills or industries that can come over to your industry and do well, and then clearly define the soft skills. In today's workplace, the soft skills has become equally as important as the technical or hard skills. The reality is people need to be able to talk at all levels of the organization, and we need to define that. The next thing I do with all of my clients I work with is compelling reasons why to work for them. And there's 7 things that I have established that candidates are looking for when they're looking for new work. Number 1 is disruption. And when I say disruption, think of something that's changed the world and how we do it. And companies like Amazon, Netflix, Uber changed the way we've done things. Not every company can have that, but if you do have disruption, you need to talk about that. Career growth is the number 1 thing most people are looking for. So define the career growth, the plan that you would have for individuals, not just for the next 90 days, for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, etc. People want to work for companies that are growing. So talk about your growth strategy. If you've acquired companies, if you have plans to do things, if you have new products or service lines, that gets people excited to share with their friends. Voice is another one that's very important for individuals. They want to have their voice heard. What I often tell companies is we raised our kids to share their voice, and now they're in the workforce asking for their voice to be shared. Don't make this a suggestion box. Truly engage it in a weekly or monthly, quarterly fashion to seek the voice of your employees on what's going well, what can be better. Question that I never was asked, and I never asked when I was early in my career, is purpose. I get that asked all the time now, is what is the purpose of your organization? There's a lot of people now that want to be aligned to their values. They want to work for companies whose purpose aligns to their values. So make sure you can clearly define that. Defining what your culture is. The culture today with it being a hybrid workforce is how do you onboard people? How do you mentor them? How do you engage them? It's not about dress code or ping pong tables or anything like that. And the last one I call life-work balance. A lot of people call it work-life balance, but the last 2 years have taught us that life is important for us to be focused on, and work as a key component of that. And how do you allow your employees to see their kids play their baseball game or do a dentist appointment or whatever it may be and still be productive in the workforce? Other things I focus on with companies, in 30 seconds or less, can you tell someone who you are and why should they consider working for your company? This has had a huge impact on a lot of the companies we work with, and I'll give you an example. We're working with a large engineering company who came to me. They were seeking a general manager. It's been open for 6 months. When I asked them that question, they didn't have an answer. So over the next week or 2, we met with their vice presidents, their team, and we came up with a 30-second pitch of why someone should come work for them, what's the compelling reasons, and within 10 days, we had 3 viable candidates, and within 30 days, a person started. Now, I can't promise that's going to work all the time, but the point being is you got to be committed to making this a priority as far as your jobs and how you're going to engage the team to do so. Some other things I focus on is read your reviews online, the Glassdoors and the Googles. Many companies just push those off as negative feedback, but everyone's reading reviews today. We do it in our personal life with sites like Amazon or Yelp for restaurants. So be aware of what is being said and be prepared to respond with action plans to overcome them. And it could be just acknowledging we have a poor onboarding plan. However, this is what we're doing to correct that. Engage candidates quickly is another thing that needs to happen. Avoid ghosting and just email interaction. People still want to be called or engaged, whether it's text or chat or a phone call. Don't respond just simply by email. Stating your timeline to hire and doing it is another important thing. We grew up in a generation of instant results. I mean, the internet has taught us that. So when a job posting comes out, your internal team needs to decide on, okay, this is the time frame we're going to hire, this is the criteria we're going to do it in, and then commit to doing that. Video has become even more of an important way to showcase your company, your culture, and your people. Sites like YouTube and TikTok are becoming more prevalent and source in attracting talent to your organization. It's a way to show the way your organization runs. It's also a way to recognize your current employees and give them opportunity to be part of that. The workplace schedule is key also. The day of 100% in the office is most likely gone for most roles. I mean, obviously there's some exceptions for certain roles like nursing and construction and things like that, but a hybrid schedule is what most people are seeking. What I suggest to companies is they have to state why they want people in the office and what the benefit of it is. Last here is have objective criteria on promotions or next steps. Like for example, at Procom, we have an established plan that allows recruiters to advance by attaining gross margin goals. And it's set in stone, they know where they are, and when they hit those goals, they get a promotion.
So how should TA leaders pivot their strategies to attract and retain talent?
First and foremost, stop doing what's being done the last 40 years in attracting talent, which is posting boring job postings and having long hiring cycles. The job posting needs to be changed, and my recommendation is beginning of your job posting talks about the compensation for the role. It could be total comp, base plus whatever. Next should be your workplace flexibility. Are you 100% in the office? Are you hybrid? Are you remote? Discuss that. And then a quick section on the compelling reasons why to work for your company. Then you can go into the duties, responsibilities we typically respond. When people are looking at job postings, those are the top 3 questions they're asking today. So address them up front to get people interested in reading further. When you start with duties, responsibilities, they often leave the page because they didn't want to scroll down to find that information. Next is you have to include hiring managers upfront in building an accurate job profile and hiring criteria. Often what we see is the HR talent team has their traditional job posting, and then candidates interview with the hiring manager, and we find disconnect on what they're looking for, and it just prolongs the hiring cycle. So getting hiring managers involved up front is essential to build an accurate job description or job profile, whatever you prefer to call it, and then building objective hiring criteria that allows you to make a decision. You also need to train your managers and all of your staff on your company differentiators, your value drivers, and why do you work there. Consistent messaging helps when candidates are going through the interview process, when they're hearing similar stories, similar themes that allow them to understand why they should work for the company. You also need to gain commitment that hiring is the top priority for the hiring manager. The goal is to fill the job. Thus, they need to make themselves available to interview and have criteria to make a decision on hiring. The interview process should be no longer than 3 interviews for most jobs. Now, sometimes it can go longer for executive roles, but for contract labor jobs, we often see 1 interview. For perm placement jobs, we often see a maximum of 3, and that needs to be done within a 7 to 10 day window. You need to avoid the comment we often see or used to hear is, I want to see one more candidate. I want the perfect candidate. That's really difficult to find today. Focus on what is absolutely required, the hard and soft skills, and what can be trained. Is a degree really required for the role? When you're able to find someone that has 70, 80% of the skill sets, so you can train them on the remaining portions, hire that employee. They're going to do well for you. And lastly, they truly need to understand candidates are interviewing them as much as you're interviewing the candidate. So allow them access to anything about the company and go from there. Now, I do this internally with my team, and it's created a great opportunity for potential candidates to understand who their peers are and what the company does well. It creates transparency. They can ask any question. But on the flip side, I have employees that are engaged in the attraction of this talent, and it allows them to have buy-in when we hire that talent to help onboard them, train them, and mentor them. They feel part of the process. The other thing here is survey your employees. Have at least one example where the company has made a change based on employee feedback. These are things that will help you get the employee involved. Lastly, discuss the onboarding, the first 90 days, what does success look like, how do you train them, and then what's the career development plan from there. So that's the attraction piece. On the retention piece, the number one thing we try to get people to understand, especially with the pandemic the last 2 years, is there's been a shift in compensation and trends. So what are you doing to understand the marketplace? There are numerous trade associations, HR professional organizations, or companies like ours that can help you understand the marketplace and where things are going. Many companies are willing to pay a new employee 20% more than their current employee, but will only give the existing employee a 3 to 5% raise. Does that really make sense? Identify who you need to keep in your high potentials, develop them, spend the time with them, and pay them what you would be paying a new employee to retain them. I mentioned earlier, provide employees a voice. This is not a suggestion box. One of the things we do at our company is every month we seek out opportunities from our employees on what we continue to do, what we should stop doing, and what we should start doing. And we get very valuable feedback there that allows us to build better teams, better training, and how we engage our customers and candidates to do so. I mentioned earlier about having a career development plan. Allow employees to shadow jobs they have interest in That allows us upfront to understand, is it truly the right fit they want to do? And then we can build succession planning over time for them to move into those roles. And then last is, you invest so much time in hiring employees. Don't let them walk away for a job you have in another department. Keep these people that have a lot of subject matter expertise in your company. Keep them in your organization, even if they're switching to a different department. It's going to create innovation in that department and allow the whole company to succeed at a higher level.
Now, how should organizations communicate their offerings and their EVP to potential candidates?
Number one, discuss total compensation plans. Include in there what the base is there any upside for bonuses, commissions. Clearly define the benefit plan. A lot of employees don't truly understand what the benefit plans are from a healthcare, 401k, tuition reimbursement. All those things need to be clearly defined so that employees know what's coming in their pocket and what's going out of their pocket. I've shared multiple times about the compelling reasons to work for them. One of the things is the value of purpose is really there, so have that defined on your website and your meetings. The career development plans we spoke about need to be defined. What are your mentoring? What are your succession plannings? Community involvement and giving back is often something we're asked about that companies need to be speaking to. This is a great way to highlight on your social media pages, their TikToks, your YouTubes, your website. Show how you're doing that. Get employees involved in trade associations, conferences, get educational opportunities for recognition of what they're doing and also for their learning. And then focus on life-work balance. Mandate PTO usage is becoming more common. And the other thing that's becoming more common is when you're on PTO, meaning your access to email is shut off. That way you're not checking email 20 times a day as many do, and you're enjoying your time off with a focus on mental health, wellness, and doing stuff with your family and friends that is really important for you. And then last is focus on the results required for the job versus being in the office 8 hours a day or the water cooler talk. What is the key results you need for this job? And is that person attaining those?
When do you think the market will shift, and how should HR prepare?
Well, I've been just doing a lot of research on this and talking to economists and others. The situation is probably in the next 12 to 18 months, things will start shifting. And you're seeing in the marketplace now rising interest rates, talk of inflation, a recession. When those things happen, some of the money reduces and companies get more conservative. The other thing that's going to happen is companies that have gone so long without hiring, they don't need that talent anymore. They've either automated it, they've maybe gone globally for it in other parts of the world where workforce is available, or they simply realize they don't need it any longer and they cancel the openings because they're doing it themselves without the need. So we're starting to see that happening now where companies have said, for 6 months I've been searching for this, we've adjusted internally, and we no longer need the position filled. What I encourage companies to do right now is hire top talent now because they're going to be your hiring managers of tomorrow. Make sure you elevate and get the best talent now so that when the market does change, you have these people secured in your organization and they can help attract new talent in a maybe a potentially down economy.
Hiring today to get ahead tomorrow. That's some great advice. Thanks, Chris. Until next time, listeners, I'm Debbie Bola.